So good morning to you all from the Dalles Area Chamber of Community Affairs. I'm coming to you live from Sacramento right now. The weather is great down here, a little warm. We are able to do this technology from anywhere, which is great. It allows us to do all those different things and record these. So our guests today are Cyndi Gentry and Roger Kline with North Washoe County PUD. And they are here to just give us some updates, what's going on. They had a fantastic event that they helped put on with our night out. That was amazing. And you guys did a great job.
Lily did all the work.
I know Lily was the rock star. I got the cutest picture of her. But it was a wonderful turnout. It was a great evening of just seeing the positivity between our first responders of all different departments and different agencies with our community. So I was very pleased with the whole entire event. You guys did a really good job in making that happen.
And I have to say, I was thrilled with the community turnout for the very first one.
It was really good. It was very encouraging. So before we go, I know you probably know everyone in the room, but just in case, it also gives everybody a chance to introduce themselves and what agency they represent. And if you promise to keep it short, you can do a little soundbite about what's happening with your agency. So we're going to start with Mr. Scott McKay.
Good morning, Lisa. Good morning, everyone. Scott McKay. I'm a community liaison for Circles of Care. I just want to say that Rob and I attended a fantastic conference, or I would call it a celebration conference for older adults in the Gorge. It was an excellent 2-hour affair, but I was one of the presenters at the very end to wrap up. And I just wondering, do any of you ever have that experience where you worry for the day before about what you're going to say, and then you worry the day after about what you did say? Never knowing, God, did I say what I meant to say? Anyway, but it was a great presentation, and they highlighted the work that Rob was doing as far as medical equipment and things like that at the senior center. So it was a good event. So thank you. Glad to be here.
Thanks, Scott. And I'm sure you were great. So Corliss.
Good morning, everyone. This is Corliss, and I represent Columbia Gorge Habitat for Humanity in the library and the senior center. Thank you, PUD. The caramel corn and ice cream were fantastic. The community night out was just great. And so thanks, PUD. I don't have anything else to say. Oh, just prayers for the people of Maui.
Yes. Thanks, Corliss. Bill Lennox.
Good morning, everyone. I'm with the North Central Public Health District and also with Six Rivers Dispute Resolution Center. Nice to see everyone.
Good morning. Thanks, Bill. Dan Spots.
Thank you, Lisa. Dan Spots, Economic Development Officer, City of the Dalles. Now still learning the details of my new position, which involve urban renewal and the Brownfield Fund Enterprise Zone and things like that. Also working on transitioning the Child Care Center over. We hope to bring a new project manager on board with that project with Columbia Gorge ESD, a meeting with the new college president, and we're going to be touring Chenoweth Middle School, potential location for that facility here next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks for staying on that project. It's such a so necessary. We'll just leave it there. Phil Brady.
Good morning, Phil Brady, Wasco County Commissioner, and I'll just leave it at that this morning. Good to see everyone.
Mr. Brian Tuck.
Brian Tuck, retired and sitting at the coast right now.
Great. Rob Garrett.
Yes, Rob Garrett, Mid-Columbia Senior Center. I haven't got my unmuted so I can start talking. Yeah, Scott and I did go to that yesterday. It was pretty cool. They asked me to speak for a few minutes, which I had no idea I was going to get to, or have to. So I wasn't worried about it though, Scott. I just did it. You just go up and talk, right? Mid-Columbia Senior Center's got National Senior Center Month going on next month, and we're going to be putting on a big to-do, a brouhaha, if you will. It's looking around September 23rd. I'll be contacting people as far as getting the community involved. It's going to be a block party, and it's going to be we're just going to have a fun time and kind of say thank you to our community, our area, our block, whatever you want to call it. So look forward to that. And then also the lighting is coming on for the, hopefully Larry Prey will be here soon to put the new parking lot lights on. And that's because of Northern Wasco County PUD's grant. This is the biggest reason we're getting that over the top. So that's coming. Look for some lit up building here pretty soon. Thank you.
Travis Dre.
Good morning, Travis Dre, Adventist Health, Columbia Gorge. Some technology news. Adventist Health is taking us into, I think, what is current future. 80% of all healthcare systems use Office 365. So we were saying goodbye to GroupWise, an old archaic email system that I don't think many people were using. So as of Monday, our email addresses will change and we'll be using Teams and Outlook as our communication internally and externally. Some radiation oncology news. Dr. Stelzer, who really helped stand up the Cellular Cancer Center for over 22 years, will be handing off the Director of Radiation Oncology to Dr. Winnie Wong. She will start in September as our Director of Radiation Oncology, and we are super excited to have her. So some good news here.
Great. Tanya.
Good morning. Just a quick reminder, Tanya from Northwest Natural, I think that's irrelevant with this group, but the fair starts next week. So anyone out there to support some 4-H kids at the auction, make sure to remember that. And then next month, Emergency Preparedness Month, a bunch of the agencies around the area will be putting together an emergency preparedness event in September. So you'll hear more about that to come.
Thank you. And before I turn it over, the chamber does have a few things right on that, piggybacking on the auction. We are doing a chamber pool. So if you are able to go out and do on your company's own, you can drop off some money at the chamber, or we can do however you want to pay, and we'll put that all together, and then we'll go out there and bid on these animals to support the 4-H and the FFA. So it'll be the chamber pool, and the deadline will be not until the Friday just before fair, but that will be here before we know it. And of course, this weekend, it is the cruise in, the show in the shade. It is the Due for Threshing Bee. It is the Due for Car Show. There's music downtown during the cruise on Friday night. So there is a ton of different things you can do. Just check out the community calendar as they're all on there, but it is where our community truly does gather, and we bring a lot of tourists for these events and to come in and enjoy our town. So that is what's happening there with the chamber. We also have a ton of different ribbon cuttings going on and some networking events. We will be partnering with the Senior Center in September, believed to do a morning buzz to help kick off their month in recognizing our seniors and what they do for our community. And we have the most moving and shaking seniors ever. I'm just so proud of our town for that part of it. So with that, I'm turning this over to Cyndi and Roger. I will look at the chat for questions, and we'll try to find any hands that are raised, and we will just go from there. But thank you both for coming, and it's all yours.
Thank you. Hey, Roger, I'm going to let you do your introduction while I try to make sure that my slideshow ends up on the right screen for sharing.
Good luck. Hey, good morning, everyone. Great to see familiar faces, and it was wonderful to see many of you at the National Night Out. I'll just in case he decides to talk to, my 11-month-old is in the other room, and he's feeling a little chatty this morning. So good morning from Tennyson also. I really appreciate the shout outs for the PUD. We've really emphasized our community work over this last year, and whether it was helping to provide some seed money for National Night Out or just engage with the community differently, things that Cyndi will talk about today. Just really proud of that fact, you know, for me in my personal life, in some change with my mom's health care up in Yakima, to understand the benefit and how she was leaning into her local senior center for her activities and just her interaction, and then to have that go away. Just thank you for those that are actively engaged in that space, and can just tell you it's really important, especially for when the kids kind of become the parents themselves. It's quite the transition there. So I think I've stretched long enough. very wonderful to see everyone. And Cyndi, you got the right screen up, so perfect. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks for having us. And again, thank you. We will absolutely be passing on those kudos to the staff. And Roger, if you could help me here, I was trying to find the name of the award that Travis and Caesar's team won for the work that they do on conservation.
The Smart Energy Provider designation.
Yes. The American Public Power Association, the debut of that, the year of that award. Your team here at the PUD was the first team to win basically a national recognition for their program in helping their communities and their customers with weatherization, with rebates, whether it's the lighting or the heat pump or any of that. We are incredibly proud of them and the work that they do. But my name is Cyndi Gentry. My role here at the PUD varies depending on what Roger needs. Mostly it is human resources, public relations, and my most personal direct focus is legislative affairs and government affairs. So I'm really happy to be able to talk about some of the things that we have going on, some of the things that have happened. So let's get started. Nothing here. There we go. So who we are a community-owned public utility formed in 1939, and 10 years later, delivered the first power to the Dalles. And Roger, I forgot to take that sentence out. We are actually at we're getting close to 76 years of electric service. I reused a slide here and forgot to update that. We do have a 5-member board of directors elected by customers. We have 2 new board members this year and 3 that have served that are in the middle of their terms of service. Before we start talking about what's going on at the PUD, I wanted to share some statistics that you may or may not be aware of. I use these a lot in my communications with legislators, with regulators, with other groups. 1 in 4 Oregon households are energy burdened. In Oregon, there are 37 COUs, and those 37 COUs serve 9 of the 10 counties with the highest poverty rates. And those counties, 30 to 52% of the households were energy burdened in 2020. Here in Wasco County, 14% of the households live below the federal poverty level, and 25% of the households are energy burdened. The reason I'm sharing this data here at the district, I really hope that our customers know the employees that work here are here as part of, they believe that this is public service. They do this as much for the community as they do it for the paycheck. This kind of information informs decisions that they make, that we make every single day as we're developing plans, as we're determining rates, as we're building our budgets. We're building our budgets and getting ready to look at rates right now. These are things that we think of. These are things that are always in the back of our mind. Your district, by the numbers, we have 87 square miles of territory, service territory, 10,459 meters, 413 miles of line, and that line is both overhead and underground. It is distribution and transmission. 9 substations, over 7,300 pole structures, and over 3,153 transformers that are not actually in those substations. Those are up on the poles and on the pad mounts, or actually that may include the ones in the substations. This last number is pretty important. Technically we had 2 different peaks, usage peaks in 2022. The first one was in February. The most recent one, the current one that's holding is 180.84 megawatts as of December 2022. We expect to hit a new peak this summer at some point. I'm guessing based on the forecast for next week, it's going to be next week. A lot of that's due to growth. Some of that is due to weather. Our winters are cold, our summers are hot. And so as we plan for more use. We plan for growth. These are 2 different fuel breakdowns The top one here, where our power comes from for our community, that one is actually from 2020. And you'll notice it is majority hydro. The one below is the most current data, and you'll notice that it has shifted a lot. New industrial customers, we have to go out to market. We can't serve them. We can't get enough from Bonneville, which is mostly hydro, to serve the new larger industrial customers. So we go out to market, and we can't always, I mean, we can't specify, we can't control. We try to get carbon-free power, but we also have to keep the lights on and keep things moving for those customers. So it has shifted from 78% hydro to 47%. That doesn't mean that that unspecified, we're not saying that that's all coal. We're just saying that it's an unspecified amount. It's going to be wind, it's going to be hydro, it's going to be solar, it's going to be nuclear, because it is what we can purchase on the market. That fact is why I have a job in government affairs, because when regulations come out that say all of the power must be carbon free and we want to tear out the rivers, we're the ones that have to go and explain to them, we can't, there's not enough power from the format that you want to keep those lights on. We have a lot of those conversations. Sometimes they work, unfortunately, right in this moment in time with current politics. I'd say too often they don't work. So I wanted to share with this group how things are changing. We are growing. Electrification is happening. It's being pushed. Some people want it, some people don't. It doesn't matter. It is happening. So obviously we need more power. Coal plants are down or are coming down. Tanya knows that, you know, some natural gas generation is coming down. People are maybe switching out how they heat their home. And we have to figure out how to safely, reliably, and affordably continue to meet needs. Residential costs. These are the current cost of a little over $90 a month on average for a residential home. In 2019 and 2020, it was about $75. And in fact, we delayed a scheduled increase in 2020 when the pandemic hit. That's why we had that same rate for 2 years. 2021, it was about $78. 2022, it was about $80. We work really hard to manage these rate increases. We don't want big spikes. It's much easier, I think, for people to bear. I know it is for me, when it's a smaller increase on a regular basis than going along and it's all the same, and then suddenly you have a double-digit increase. We work really hard to avoid those. Our non-residential rates are some of the lowest compared to other utilities in Oregon. But on top of that, we have two discounted rates, a 10% and a 35%, that each have different qualifying ways to qualify for those discounts. Our 10% discount, we have 521 customers that have saved a total of $25,460 in the first 6 or 7 months of this year. Our 35% discount, we have 416 customers who have saved a total of over $73,000 in the first 7 months of this year. Part of that is a pilot program, and part of that is some discount programs that we've had for many, many years. Overall, 9.9% of our residential customers are receiving a reduced rate of one form or another. Pardon me. Community investment. Over the past 5 years and, over the next 5 to 10 years, we invest in the community's future by investing in our infrastructure, investing in our assets. Over the past few years, we've done a lot of wire and pole work. We rebuilt the Ty Valley substation. We've had some new things go up that you've seen. And now looking forward, we have the capital plan, Roger, I think it's safe to say is technically longer than 3 years, I tend to focus on the 3-year capital plan because at this moment, we are in the process of going out for some bond funding. In fact, at Tuesday night's board meeting, the board approved the ordinance that starts the 30-day public comment period at the end of that 30 days. If there's no public comment that causes us to pause, then we'll proceed with bond funding around $17 million for the work that needs to be done over the next 3 years. Another thing that I wanted to share is that when we plan these projects, whether it's Kurt, whether it's Jeff, whomever, they look long-term and they take multiple needs, both current and future, into account. One example in these 2 pictures, if you've seen the big 230 kV line work down here on River Road, you may have noticed that there are 2 different kinds of poles. And that isn't because we ran out of one kind and had to go use another. It's because when Kurt was planning out this project, he also looked at the work we need to do on the line that goes to Rowena, to our customers in Rowena. And so some of these big poles have the 2 crossbars at the bottom, as you see in the picture on the right side. Those poles will actually be part of that project. And so in doing it this way, you're buying 1 pole and able to use it technically for two different services. That work will include some, if I'm using this word right, some hardening efforts. We've had a number of poles in that direction burn up in wildfires, and it's replacing continuously replacing poles is not an effective use of funds. But when those poles come down and our customers lose power, obviously we're very concerned about that. So part of that planning is, how do we mitigate what we've seen start to happen over the years? Another project I don't have pictures of that will be coming up is we have 2 substations that both need some upgrades, and they are looking at the best way to utilize both those substations they're both on the east side of town, to make sure that we have the resiliency, the redundancy that we need for our customers to keep the power on. Can we handle the peaks? We don't want to overbuild and waste, but we also have to make sure that we don't underbuild and not deliver what we need for the customers. This is a slide that gets reused quite a bit. It's a consistent thing for us. Are we expanding our offerings? Are we giving our customers what they want or what they need? Improved online and telephone bill payment, energy information options. Travis and I were just talking yesterday. One of the things that the pandemic did for the energy management program is Travis had to redesign how the work gets done, because they couldn't go into people's houses for a couple of years. They wanted to keep customers and obviously our employees safe. And he and I talked about the fact that in doing that work, it forced him to look at all of it, whether or not it was directly impacted by the pandemic or not. Always taking those opportunities to look at how we do work and are we doing it in the best possible manner. We continue to work to expand our social media so that we can have obviously more people paying attention to it, so that we can use it as not just as a fun tool, but as an important communication tool. A lot of electric vehicle information. Justin Brock has worked very, very hard on the electrical vehicle program, on the information we put on the web, on the stuff that gets put into Lisa's parking lot over there. That he has done so much great work there and will continue to do that. Here very shortly, we will be kicking off a implementation of a brand new enterprise business system. It has both the customer information program in it, as well as the financial information in it, all of our work orders, our purchase orders, all of that, how we track our projects. And I can tell you, many, many people in this organization are looking forward to having a new and improved system so that we can work more effectively and be able to help our customers. Again, speaking of awards, we are a RP3. We actually have just started the application process or the submittal process To earn this again, it is something that you have to reapply for every 3 years. I'm confident. Our employees work so incredibly hard, doing such important and good work. But it does take a lot, not only to do the work that qualifies, but then to do the submittal to get the recognition that the employees deserve. Those are the things that I wanted to present today. Roger, do you have anything that you want to add?
Always, not for lack of quality content. I was trying to keep up with folks in the chat, so maybe you'll catch me a little scatterbrained.
Oh, that's okay.
We fully recognize that there is, I believe your number was 8%, Cyndi, of total customers that are on a reduced
We're
rate.
up to 9.9 now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And even though we are the lowest cost provider in a per unit, per kilowatt hour and overall average monthly bill, we fully appreciate that. That doesn't mean folks are still without need. And that energy burden isn't a definition that we have come up with. That's a federal standard that has been adopted by the state of Oregon. And there's a lot of legislation that talks about that. I had the pleasure to share the stage with, I forget her last name, Tanya, Nina, government affairs manager from Northwest Natural. We were at the Oregon City County Manager Association summer meeting in Pendleton a few weeks ago. And a lot of this conversation centered around the beneficial electrification transition, the electrification of the transportation sector. Because remember, in Oregon, the largest source of carbon emissions isn't the energy sector per se, it's the transportation sector, it's exhaust emissions. And whether that's heavy rigs up and down I-5 or 84 or whatever your favorite mode of travel is, to imagine quadrupling the amount of vehicle traffic that way if river passage through the Federal Columbia River Power System is impeded, or just the amount of electrical generation that would be required if the gas system was abandoned, like some very passionate, well-funded special interest groups would like to see happen. That's just not reality to do that safely. I'm seeing comments on the view shed of the scenic area with transmission lines. Ultimately, we all have that choice, right? We can have no carbon footprint and sit in the dark, in the heat and the cold. That's an extreme response, but that's kind of the conversations that we're having both in Salem and Washington, D.C., and even some of Cyndi's work in Olympia and Sacramento. There's no shortage of extreme, impassioned, well-funded responses that fish passage isn't really the issue. It's dam removal is the only goal, or it's carbon reduction isn't necessarily the goal. It's zero carbon power generation, and for all viable reasons from that particular stakeholder group. And for us as the public body that is responsible to all of you for every hour of every day of every year, it's finding that balance point. I'll reemphasize what Cyndi said, that an unspecified resource does not assume that it is coal. It's just there's no tracking mechanism currently to tell you for every kilowatt, for every hour of every day, when that purchase is made on a market purchase or even a product. We try not to be in the real-time market. There's more financial risk than we're comfortable with in that. Because it says unspecified, the state of Oregon assumes it's coal. And the reality is there aren't enough coal plants interconnected in the West to say that's true. So again, reality versus, you saw it in the chat, it's the icky conversation. It's physics, economics, politics, and we're still bound by the laws of physics, contrary to popular belief. The realities of economics, knowing that we have one of the world's largest companies in our community and 10% of the community base on a reduced energy burdened reality. So what's that sweet spot? And we continue to strive to provide that sweet spot for everyone that wants it and needs it. You know, I'm an electric utility nerd, and I proudly have gas in my house for water heat and cooking and my barbecue. So that's just my personal need. I like redundancy and options. And I think really for what your elected board and our community desires, it's don't be on the bleeding edge of some things. Wait till the technology is proven, the cost has come down, the reliability has gone up, and make affordable, smart, longer term decisions. So as we work through the process of adding more bonds and some debt to the organization, just know that from a financial ratio perspective, we are really, really good. And we're still going to be the lowest cost provider, if not in Oregon, definitely the region, and keep those reliability numbers up, because as we all know, it can get really, really hot and really, really cold. And we want to ensure that folks are safe and warm in their home and business. And I never want Lisa to call me to say, why is the entire downtown dark? and that's, sometimes I get those calls about folks worrying about things like that.
Right.
Hey, Roger, Phil's got his hand up.
Okay. Go for it.
Well, I'm all for binding people by the laws of physics. I was a physics major and finally got to teach physics my last 2 years of high school teaching. Electricity is one of the technologies that's kind of been doomed by its success. We expect so much of it because it's been so amazingly successful. Going back, I watched a history of electricity. I recommend it highly. It's entertaining, called Spark. It came by the BBC. And much of understanding of how electricity works happened by accident. And then we continue to use it more and more without understanding what electricity is and how it works. It's amazing. Back in the early days, New York City had a small direct current producers, and wires were going from building to building. It was a crazy network. So what we have now is very sleek compared to how electricity began. Getting off my history bent for a minute, there's moving to the opposite direction of what's happening in the near future. I'd love to have an update on. I've been following the development of NewScale, small nuclear power generators, what's happening in that, and also, especially since Tanya is here, she might chime in and know what's happening with the hydrogen hub, perhaps bringing some hydrogen power to our region.
Real quick, my awareness on NewScale application for licensure and early construction, I believe, was the last milestone. UAMPS, Utah Association of Municipal Power Suppliers, is the partner with NewScale that has the preliminary license for Idaho. And to link it back to Bill's comment in the chat, the transmission needs for the true carbon-free energy future to meet its stated goals, we're gonna have to double the transmission capacity, at least around the West and in the Western interconnection. So as much as I like what big transmission lines look like in my nerdy self, I know that not everyone does. I'll say if we are gonna meet the goals in the timeline that are stated by our state governments in the West, you're going to see double of what the transmission lines you currently see today, at least, if not in number and in capacity. Some folks say 2030, I think 2070, if you're realistic, if you take the current build rate and line it out to the future. If it's NewScale or any other small modular reactor that actually has to get built and licensed and go through the process, 2030, if everything went perfectly, and we know that doesn't always happen.
And I'd like, just like to share too, when Roger was talking about transmission. So obviously there's transmission, there's putting in solar, there's putting in wind, there's relicensing hydro. I can tell you that there are more than half a dozen different, we'll call it permitting reform bills being passed around in Washington, DC, and I'm going to be really surprised if one of them passes in the next 12 months. So until everything's going to take longer than I think most people think it should, until we can deal with the red tape.
I'll share that in the Bonneville queue before Tanya answers the question. 140,000 megawatts of interconnection requests are active right now. So for economy of scale, our peak load, 180 megawatts. So 1 megawatt, 750 to 1,000 homes, depending on size and capacity. This community used to be, like, for many, many years, 20 megawatts. Our average is in the 160, 170. We hit 170 something yesterday. So we'll peak again, definitely after the next interconnection happens. So yeah, 140,000 in the Bonneville queue. Most of it is solar and some sort of solar and storage. And the technology to build and make the batteries that would be required to do that would be greater than all of the battery capacity currently on the planet. And that's happening worldwide. So again, don't let a good soundbite go to waste. But that darn physics thing, Phil, you know, we're still bound by that law. I'll stop yapping. I think Tanya was going to answer that question on Hydrogen Hub.
Well, on the hydrogen, I don't know if you're aware, Phil, but we are testing that in our what we call our training town, which is in Sherwood. It's a closed loop system. And so hydrogen use is not new to the gas system. They use it in Hawaii, have done so for ages, and then also up in Canada. So just a matter of perfecting it and getting it approved. As Cyndi and Roger said, everything has to be approved and nothing happens quickly. And so, yeah, we're working on that, looking at 20% into the system. So that's a huge win also with RNG, but the goal of the hydrogen is to take green hydrogen. So this extra battery or extra usage from the wind and the solar that can't be stored, then if we can make it into hydrogen, then we can store it into our system, which is, you know, thousands and thousands of miles of pipeline. Then you've got that battery of energy in the form of hydrogen stored in the gas lines. And so working together with these electric and these power companies and using the energy cohesively together, that's really the end goal. And I think that's people in the energy industry really understand this. It's trying to get the political atmosphere and the environmental atmosphere to understand the actual way energy is used. And I'll leave it at that.
Dan, you have a question?
Thank you, Lisa. And actually, now I've got a question for both Tanya and Roger. Tanya, really quickly, are you working with the Obsidian project that's being proposed, explored? And then Roger, your thoughts on the Cascadia underwater under the Columbia River high voltage system that is being proposed from the Dalles to Portland, and what effect would that have? Implications for transmission capacity. Tanya first.
I'll have to say I don't know the answer to that directly. That would be someone out of our headquarters, and I can find that out. We have a lot of specialists in these specialty industries, and I can find that out for you, Dan, and let you know.
Thank you, Tanya.
My inner economist is going to come out, Dan. Any project worth its salt should stand on its own, unsubsidized. And then if it requires subsidy, have that conversation. I would hope, and my son agrees clearly, that any project that is going to end up in the water in the National Scenic Area has the same level of scrutiny as anybody else that has to do work in the water. And I'll leave it at that. But yes, there is a need for transmission capacity going east-west. And you know, the Portland Load Center is the responsibility of Portland General Electric. And I would hope that our tax dollars aren't subsidizing them. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you both.
Any other questions, comments? Brilliant ideas.
I'll chime in here since we're coming up to Fair Week. Everybody enjoy the fair next week. From many years when I was a kid, the standard billboard for the Wasco County Fair had, as you can imagine, in one corner, I think it was the bottom right corner, a family from town, and typified by a man with a Indiana hat, and up in the upper left corner, some ranchers, rancher family, and they're kind of looking across, kind of shaking hands at each other. On the city side was some city buildings, and on the upper side, the ranch side, was some hills with some high voltage transmission lines across it. And the symbolism of there is, we in rural Wasco are proud of these power towers because it shows that we are modern. And as time has gone on, like I say, electricity has been such a invisible thing that we would like it to be more invisible, but the laws of physics, there's a limit to what you can connect without any wires. So it's our standard of beauty changed from thinking it was great to have power right next to us. I can see it, I'm responsible for it, and to saying, no, we want it hidden, like other things, like if I had slaves in my house, I would want them to be hidden. And I kind of think of it that same way with electricity. We want it, but we want it to be hidden.
Paradigm has shifted, that's for sure. Now we have, was it NIMBY and banana?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not in my backyard, build absolutely nothing anywhere near anyone. Yeah.
Bill, go ahead with your question, but you're on mute.
Yeah, this is a great conversation. It's interesting to hear everyone's concerns. I grew up in a town that many of you have gone to many times to conduct your business, which is Washington, D.C. And if you look out in Washington, you'll notice that there aren't any power lines in Washington, D.C. because everything was put underground. And that means, and that only means, and I'm not Bunny Pollyanna, give me a break, but I am also aware of the fact that even in Washington, I remember when I used to deliver the newspaper, there would be these houses, these brick houses in the neighborhood that looked very like they fit into the neighborhood, but in reality, they were power stations. And they did that on purpose to be able to basically make the town look a lot better and to not have power stations sitting in nice neighborhoods. And they still exist in that way. So all I'm saying is that when these designs happen, and when you start to look at trying to provide services, as you do very well, is that there isn't some consideration by the folks that are either having the industry put in place, such as Google or whatever it is, and that you and your management and your design think about those things. I mean, is there a reason why those silver poles couldn't be a color that fits into the scenic area? Couldn't it be that there's some thought process that goes into that process, as opposed to just saying, well, this is the way it is, and folks, you better sort of wise up and realize that if you want more electric cars on the road, therefore you're going to have more poles in your backyard. That's fine too, and I understand that. But it's just my sense is there any thought process that goes into it when you're making these decisions?
Thank you, and I definitely appreciate that. That's why you'll notice some of our substations now have the kind of earthen wall around it, so it just doesn't look like a chain link fence and a bunch of infrastructure. And then ones that are, we're working with the Gorge Commission now on some that are outside of the industrial park, that they'll age over time to blend into the background. They don't stay just metal. It's not ductile iron. My engineering staff is laughing at me inside their heads right now. Anyway, they will start to look more like the background. We're not replacing wood because wood tends to burn in wildfires, and we have areas with high wildfire sensitivity, so we're replacing them with steel that will age and patina over time to blend into the scenery more. So we do take those considerations, and I hear you, Bill. Thank you.
Well, just one more addition, and I'll get off this horse. One of the frustrations, and Lisa works so hard, and it's all you do, work so hard, and you talk about trying to support economic development and bringing people into the community and wanting to do things and encouraging people to work on their downtown and to find ways to make the place more attractive for everybody that comes up the river and does everything. And yet, at the same time, it seems like these decisions that are made that just wipe out, reminds me all that used to be when we were working, you say, one aw shucks sort of wipes out a whole bunch of attaboys. It just sort of feels like you work so hard to do things, and so many volunteers in the community are trying to make it better. Yet sometimes we do things that are just so contrary to sort of reaching those goals, which is to make the community more appealing to people, just generally. And then that not only goes to polls, but it goes to just basically looking at the way we look at our landscaping and the way we look at our priorities in terms of our view sheds, in terms of our covering. So it's just another one of those pieces that you just want. It doesn't cost a lot of money. It just talks about being aware and thoughtful.
When we did the analysis with the city of the Dalles to underground the infrastructure in the downtown corridor rather than use the alleys, I'll just say that when the number got to 40 million, the conversation stopped. And I'll leave it at that.
But thank you, Bill. I really appreciate, I'm just going to say this. I love this group because we are very honest with each other and very open, and we're all friends. And I love it. I do love, we have this amazing community that is that way. And I love the different insights and all of that. So with that, Rob, you have your hand raised.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate, I just wanted to, I'm going to go to a different direction from what we've been talking the last few minutes, but the PUD itself, the community's PUD that has been supporting the community for all these years, 76 years now, I understand, I got to say, from the senior center's perspective, when we call for something that needs to be done in our parking lot, whether it be changing a light bulb in an old power pole that, light outside that we can't reach, or just replacing the flag. Now it's happened twice because our flag gets tattered and it had to be wired up there so no one would steal it because it was stolen so many times that finally they just wired it up there for us. And now it has to have a high lift truck to come. 2 weeks ago, they came out, a couple of guys, actually 4 guys. We had a great time. They took pictures. We had a veteran fold the flag, the old flag. We're taking it down to have the Boy Scouts deal with it properly, dispose of it properly. But you think about what does that mean when I can pick up my phone, call an entity in the Dalles and say, can you guys run out and take care of this because we want to honor our veterans? So, I say thank you. And that doesn't include the money and the rebates that you guys have provided to the senior center over the last year and a half that I've been here. So, I know that we have a lot of political issues and we have a lot of stuff we're dealing with trying to keep all the people happy. But overall, without the PUD and the Dalles, not only would we be dark, we would be missing a huge entity that supports our city. So that's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll definitely share that with the crews. I was in the Navy. Personally, we got a lot of veterans in the building and including on the board, and we'll all make time. So thanks.
Tanya, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question for both you guys. I found it really interesting that Klickitat Power or Klickitat PUD had put in a set of letters to the public in the local paper. I think this week will be week 5. And I'm just curious, basically what they're doing is educating the public in exactly what you're saying, telling them what's going on from Olympia that's challenging the outcome of what's happening for their clean energy. And to really have done a fine job spelling it out. So I'm just curious, with them being in a different state, if you guys work to partner with Skamania County PUD, Klickitat PUD, the co-ops, when you're working with, the states and Olympia and Salem, because as we all know, it takes a team, but it still seems like we're, at least on our end, we're still having challenges. The big utilities such as PG and Pacific Power don't really want to talk about some of what is happening, the reality. But what I'm finding is the PUDs are, but not all the PUDs are being public about it. I found that the Gorge PUDs really are public about it. So I'm just curious to get maybe your thoughts on that.
Cindy, I'll go first and then you can correct everything that I say. We tend to do most of that through our trade associations, much like our community has the community outreach team where we go arm in arm and kind of march where we need to. The consumer-owned utilities, whether it's Wasco Electric Cooperative, Hood River Electric Co-op, the PUDs on the Washington side, and specific to Klickitat, since we do co-own a hydro facility together, we do ensure that our needs are aligned where we can when we're speaking out. We've chosen not to do the like ads in the paper for things. We tend to engage with our folks more on social media channels and or in public gatherings like this, kind of the meeting of community experts and influencers, not for any other reason, just effectiveness. But the 37 consumer-owned utilities in Oregon, whether it's through the PUD Association, the Rural Electric Cooperative Association, the Municipal Association, we do march together, and our lobby efforts are together. A lot of joint letters, a lot of joint testimony. I know I've been on the Hill a few times. Cindy definitely has. It's necessary because, as you stated, the big kids, the investor owns, the ones that get paid to build the coal plant, paid to take the coal plant down, paid to build the, whatever, and ensure it gets rate based and the shareholders get a return on that investment. They don't play. And so we have to recognize that individually we are not as strong as we are together.
So some of the things that have just happened actually this year. So Kurt Conger testified before the federal CEQ regarding the mediation process that's going on about the Snake River dams. I testified to members of the State Department and other agencies that are in the process of renegotiating the Columbia River Treaty with Canada. These are some areas we get involved in. I will share this. The last time I submitted what I considered an op-ed piece to the local paper, I was told that it was a political ad and it would cost 4 figures to run it. And I said,
Wow.
thanks, never mind.
Some of those we have to be pretty careful of because it's your money, you know, and we're a diverse community that maybe doesn't always feel the same way on a topic, and recognize that we represent all of you through your elected board of directors. So that's really our check-in on the pulse of how the community feels. I don't
want to pay $1,000 to submit something that Lisa agrees with, but Bill doesn't.
Right. And sometimes that's a fine line.
Mm-hmm.
Phil, you had a question, and we have just a couple minutes left.
Pretty quick, because it's just a compliment both to your management. Kirk Conger, I know, does an incredible job, and also your board of directors. Those are volunteers, and they have to work really hard to understand this subject and represent the community interest, and also understand the physics of what's going on. So I've watched them over the years, and they do a great job.
I'll be updating the bios of a couple of our board members here very soon on the website. They have put in many, many hours and a lot of work earning a high-level certification for public power board members. And so we'll be putting that out on the website to add it to their bios, but also to acknowledge that work. They don't do it for themselves. They do it because they're there for the community.
Thank you. We only have a couple minutes left. We will keep you guys updated as to when that project is going to be completed at the chamber for a charging station and the car share, where of course there's delays because of access to the equipment that is necessary. So it's on order. It looks like it's going to be later this fall, but we will make sure that we'll keep you guys updated. We're pretty excited about it, and we will probably do unofficial ribbon cutting just because we can, and I might have some scissors and red ribbon for that. We're pretty excited to have that, and so we're looking forward. And then a real quick note for some of you may have driven by the chamber and go, where did all the yellow curbs go alongside 2nd Street? We have had those removed. We had a bus lane painted And so now the tour buses will be able to pull off Second and into our parking lot, drop off passengers to go to the original county courthouse or to the chamber, and then pick them up easily also. This is taking care of a couple issues that, I'll be honest, the bus was trying to stop where the largest population right now of items and houseless. And so the people were hesitant to get off the bus, and we decided to, if we can't solve it completely, we'll provide a different path. And so we did. We have a different point A to point B right through this. And it also allows our passengers to stop in our office and wait for the bus. And we have air conditioning and water and a bathroom. So it accommodates a lot of different needs. And so we work directly with Public Works and got her done. And so that's one of the things. So if you see that, that is why. And so it's still a parking lot though, so don't go zipping through there. But anyway, with that, I thank you, everyone. You guys have a fantastic week. We will be on here next week and see you again. If you have any questions, give us a holler at the chamber and we will see what do. And again, Cyndi and Roger, thank you so much for giving us information, updating us,
Thanks for
and just
having
being
us.
and being candid in front of us. I really appreciate it. And again, congrats to you and your whole team. I'll tell Lily, a great community night out. It was just fantastic to see our community with so many smiles and giggles and having fun and interacting. So thank
We're
you.
very
For
excited to start planning next year's.
Yes, I'm right there with you. All right, with that, everybody take care. Have a fantastic, it will be warm this weekend, so check in on your elderly neighbors. I really appreciate it. Take care.
Tanya, please give my regards to Sean.